In this box, I have the new 2021 Haro Thread Slope. As most of you guys know, bikes are hard to come by nowadays, especially dirt jumpers. With all these delays around the world, I'm still on my Haro Thread 2 and my Haro Thread Slope from 2019. We finally got a 2021 slow bike. So let's open it up and see what's changed. Just to make things clear, this bike is straight from the factory. There's none of my, I didn't put any of my custom sponsored parts. This bike is exactly how it comes. If you order one of these, this is how it's gonna come. Straight from Haro. As you can see, I didn't put any parts on it. I just took all the wrapping off. So if you have zero mechanical skills and you're scared to put a bike together, it's pretty dang easy. So all I gotta do is slap the front wheel on and put the handlebars in and hook up the brakes. Simple as that. Here's a little box that it comes with. We have reflectors. I'm not gonna say throw the directions away, but I don't need them, so I'm gonna throw the directions away. The gyro top cable. We have a set of plastic Haro SD pedals, and not plastic because they're cheap. Plastic pedals have come a long ways over the years, and they're actually just lighter. They're very popular in the freestyle world, so they're not just cheap pedals, they're actually really nice pedals made out of really good plastic material. More reflectors. Get one of these and see this. This is like a clear sticker. It goes on your chainstay here. It's just so the chain doesn't bounce and nick your paint all up. For my BMX guys, we all know when we put new bars on, we gotta take the stem cap fully off. Well, mountain bike, as long as it's loose, they usually just slide right in. I love how mountain bike bars, I'm sure there's some BMX companies too, but I love how mountain bike bars always have indicators for like your angle and centered. It's always super easy to like make sure your bars are centered and where you want them. I like to keep my bars nice and parallel with the head tube. Brakes are super simple. Gyros seem a little more complicated, but put your cable in the lever first. There's a long side and a short side. The long side goes on the opposite end of your stem. Screw down the little barrel. I like to just screw them all the way down first until we start adjusting later. I run my bars a little lower than most. Being a long-time racer, I kind of like being bent over a little more and having something to pull on. I feel real, if my bars are too high, I feel like I'm really kind of standing upright and I'm really loopy. I know it'll be better in some cases, but the Thread Slope I actually use as a dual slalom racing bike more than a slope style bike. A little lower, you're always in that aggressive attack mode for racing, so. It's definitely different on my Thread 2 though, the hardtail. Makes tricks a little easier. And so we run the cable straight into the top plate and then straight into the gyro. 6mm Allen head for the 20mm axle, and then it's got 4 pinch bolts to really make sure it's in there secure. I've had a few people also think forks are backwards. Traditionally, we see this little bridge out front on most mountain bike forks, but this one is the Manitou Circus fork, and I think all Manitous, that's just their style. They run that little bridge out the back. I'm not sure what the difference is or what the pros and cons of having it forward or back, but the fork is not backwards. It's just how that brand makes their product. This bike does not come with a front brake, but everything is equipped. The front fork has front brake mounts. The front hub has disc brake mounts. Say if you were to ride this bike on some dual slalom races like I do, you're able to put front brakes on there. That's so simple to do anyways. So you tighten the axle and then you come through and just tighten these 4 little pinch bolts, 2 on each side. You don't have to crank down overly on them, just make sure they're good and snug. Cool. Really digging this color. It's kind of like, from the website I was thinking it was like a flat red, but it's like a pearl red. Kind of cool, different for sure. That chain is a little long. I'm gonna make that part a little custom because everyone has the option to make their chain shorter, and I want this bike to ride as close to my custom bike as possible. I think I'm gonna break that chain, take a link out, and really bring that back in a little closer. One of the coolest things on these bikes that the Haro dropouts come with, there's just a little pinch bolt underneath that locks this turn knob, and that turn knob is your chain tensioner. So you don't have anything hanging off, everything's built in and super clean. It's actually one of my favorite features of the Haro dirt jump line, is because this is so like convenient and easy to use. Low profile, doesn't really stick out all the way up, because I want that back end as short as possible for me. And when the back end is shorter, it makes it easier to manual. A lot of tricks are easier to do. You can ride tighter. When you have a long wheelbase and you ride like dirt jumps on a real tight transition, it just feels different. So I just prefer a really short back end. I mean, I am a BMXer, so it's kind of part of it. After you roll these little barrels back in and tighten the tensioners back to the axle, make sure you don't forget to go underneath here and tighten the pinch bolts back down. If you guys have a problem with the brakes, there's actually a lock. I don't know what the purpose of that. Oh, so it's a lock for if you're working on your brakes and you open them up all the way, you can push this little lock in. So that was actually engaged, so that's why my brakes wouldn't move. I didn't realize that at first until I looked at the brakes, and it literally has like a little lock icon on it, so just look out for that. It's easy to find once you know. I just actually wasn't really aware of that. Simple as that. I like to put my bike on the ground to make sure my stem is cracked so I can look down at it. Also make sure your top gyro plate is straight as well. Seat post comes pretty long, and the seat post of the frame, like the seat tube, actually bends a little bit, so it can only go down so far, but it comes long because everyone has their preference, right? So you probably have to cut. I'm gonna cut the seat post so it'll drop a little lower for my liking. So if you want the seat post lower than how it comes out of the box, just pull out the post, cut the bottom of the post. Nice. This bike looks sick. I love the red and black. Here it is, the 2021 Haro Thread Slope. I'm gonna dial in the air pressure of the fork. I'm gonna make sure it matches my other bike, same as the shock, pump up the tires. They'll take it in the backyard and give it its first test. See you guys at the jumps. All right, so first off, I have to say, excuse the yard. It looks like absolute trash out here. We've had so much rain, so I'm stoked to finally have a dry day. But another topic, I've finally been able to purchase my first skid steer. So tomorrow it arrives, and this whole place is getting a complete makeover. But you know what? It's a rough surface. We're riding a dual slalom slope bike, so it's almost the perfect conditions to properly test out this bike. Figure it's only right if I wear the red helmet. Plus, my Mercedes helmets are in paint. We're getting freshies. All right, let's hope we tighten all the bolts. So scary dropping in on a new bike for the first time. Especially stock, like, I went straight through the run, but it definitely felt foreign, like it wasn't my own bike. The rebound was like too fast. It's definitely different as expected from my other slope bike, how I have it set up, but I can't really pinpoint the shock. I think I could have put a little more air in the shock. We made a pretty big change on this bike. One of the biggest things we were noticing on the first generation of this bike was rear end flex. If like you were to 360 off a tight lip, you really felt flex in the back end, or I felt it racing dual slalom because we're sprinting so hard out of the gate and we're hitting turns really hard. And I was actually noticing the back end was flexing enough where the rear tire was touching the front, touching the seat stays. So what we did, instead of fully redesigning this frame, I experimented with some own personal ideas to fill this void a bit. They 3D printed this piece. It's a little insert, it's just 2 bolts that slides right in. It doesn't change like how the bike actually works. This whole rear end bolts it right here, right? Well, this bolts way up here. So this whole back end pivots off this joint. It's gonna move as much as the gap between the wishbone and the seat post. So what we did was design this, or what Haro did was design this piece that slips in here. I definitely didn't put enough air in the shock, but one of the first things, I didn't feel it wanting to push because this little insert actually stops it. And you don't feel, it's not like a stop as if you feel material hitting each other. It's still up and down, and when the suspension goes in and out, it still works as it should. It just eliminates it if you turn, if you really lean it on the side, it stops that flex from going too far. So that's the first thing I've noticed so far, is instantly not feeling that flex, which I expect. Well, I didn't expect it because I knew it was there, but it definitely feels much stiffer than what I've been riding. I definitely got the suspension a little soft. I'm running over to the shop, put some more air in that, figure. I didn't even check it, I just wanted to ride with what it came out of the box. So I'm gonna go put more air in and come back to it.
I lost you in the jungle.
Hi. You gonna ride with me? I'll go do the drop now. Kind of used to it. I trust that I've got all the bolts tight now. So. There's definitely no way I could ride any of my other bikes right now. That pump down is so rutted out. I'm gonna keep riding. I can talk to you guys in a bit. Oh, of course, come on. Well, that sucks. I guess this is a good time to go back in the shop and go over what we felt. Well, that sucked. First off, that was actually the first time I rode one of these bikes fully stocked. Pretty rad. Like, obviously I ride for Haro, but it was pretty cool pulling a bike straight out of the box and being able to take it over to the jumps. I think the only thing I messed up was not checking air pressures. It just felt hard, and honestly that was my own mistake. Once I got my body weight on them, I blew through the suspension pretty easy. The bike weight, I could definitely tell it's heavier than my current slope bike that I use for competition. So this bike is about right at 3 pounds heavier than my current competition thread slope. So I definitely felt the difference there. And it could be wheels heavier, tires would definitely be heavier than my Maxxis tires. I really say that's the only thing on this bike where you can save weight. The seat is fine. The shock is one of the best shocks you can get. The frame, you obviously can't change any weight there. Bars, stem, that's pretty straight to the point on any bars and stem combo, so you can't save much weight there. But I would definitely say, even these cranks, like, I didn't have to put these cranks on, they were already on, but these cranks are pretty nice FSAs, and I couldn't imagine them being that heavy. So I think the biggest thing would be trying to save weight in the wheels. Lighter rims, lighter hubs, lighter tubes if you really want to get crazy with it. I don't know how this Manitou fork compares to weight against my RockShox Pike DJ,
But I think those are the only areas you can really save some weight is majority, the wheels and the front fork possibly. If you're coming from a trail bike, say this is your first slope or dirt jump bike, it's probably gonna feel a lot lighter. I wanna say this is just under 30 pounds right out of the box, so depending on what kind of trail bike you ride, it's gonna be a little lighter. Handlebars felt good. It's got the little hook brake lever, that was a little different. It feels good. I definitely could have adjusted it in to feel like I'm holding it at a different position. These brakes are a mechanical brake, but they have a hydraulic piston in the back, so I don't really know how it works. The cable pulls the hydraulic plunger, and then the plunger pushes in the caliper, and that pushes the pads. Suspension is probably the biggest thing. I didn't put air in the rear suspension. This rear shock is super dialed, but the fork, I could definitely feel, it feels stiff when I locked it out, or if I almost cranked the knob, all the compression all the way up, but the blow through feels a lot lighter than my dirt jumper pike. Me coming from the BMX world, I like a bike ride pretty stiff. It's okay here. It kind of bites me in the ass if I'm riding my trail bike or something because it doesn't work as properly as it should. But it worked though. I never felt like I blew through it or bottomed out or anything, which is awesome because I've definitely, when I did the review on the Steel Reserve, I could definitely feel, those are cheaper, the forks, I could definitely feel that fork blowing through. What else? We had the back end pushed all the way up, way easier to pull up on. We have the new shim on the seat post, so it didn't feel very flexy. It actually felt very solid, especially after I've been on that bike for almost 3 years. This being a brand new, fresh aluminum bike with that insert, it definitely felt really solid. It obviously felt softer than my hardtail, but riding it versus my hardtail, it actually wasn't really the biggest difference, which was really cool until I hit the transition. I could really feel this rear suspension blowing through. The gearing felt a little small. I'm guessing that's a 30-14. So the gearing is a little easier than what I currently run on my slope bike and my Thread 2 hardtail, which that's not really a big deal. Pedals, I run an HT Supreme, like a nice sharp pedal, so it's got a good grip, so I felt like I wasn't gripping as good, but these are little things, you know, these things, like, that's not something actually anybody can change pedals. Overall, I'm pretty sold. I would give it a 8 out of 10. My slope bike being a 10, you know, a little lighter would have been cool, but that's a stock bike, you know, like you buy a stock bike, you don't buy a pro competition ready bike straight out of the box because everybody has their own preferences and companies expect you to change something on a bike when you buy it. I would probably change my handlebars just because my handlebars have a different sweep on my current bikes, so these bars felt a little flat. I will say the grips were definitely a stock bike grip. It's a ruffian pattern like the ODI Ruffians, but definitely not as soft. They're a lock-on grip. They definitely work just fine. Like, I'm purely just being picky. They feel like a really good grip. They're just harder than my ODI grips. ODIs are a lot softer. Man, I'm impressed. I don't know, I feel like I'm leaving you guys hanging, but like the bike is dope. I wish I could have rode it a little more. Unfortunately, it started raining. I want to get a few more GoPro angles so you can see how the bike really works. Dude, I'm pumped. I got the new bike, the 2021 Haro Thread Slope. I'm stoked to have a fresh one. I think since this one got cut short, I think I'm gonna do a new video. I'm gonna go out there and ride this bike, and I'm also gonna take my fully dialed competition Thread Slope, and I'm gonna do a true comparison of the two. We're gonna go do sprint on both of them. I'm gonna do the same tricks and see what feels different. I don't think we're gonna see a big difference besides weight and how the suspension reacts, but it'd be a good way to kind of see where the changes are on the bike. I want to make sure they're both set up completely identical, at least for shock pressures, tire pressures. If there's something else you guys want to see on this bike or more information you want to see on it, I'm also thinking about doing a dirt jumper versus a slope bike and it really explaining the differences and why you should ride either or. So keep that in mind. Let me know in the comments if there's something you want to see. Until next time, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not already. We'll see you next time.